continually keep you engaged, informed, updated, motivated, and updated with what strategies are working in today's market, not what happened in 2020, 2021, but what's going on now and who's successful and who's happy and who's making it happen. And we want to do this together. None of us need to do this by ourselves. That's why Dave has his awesome community. That's why Craig's been building his, is we don't have to do this by ourselves. This is a tough market, and doing it on your own sucks. It's super hard. I've been in this for 30 something years. I've known Dave for 2 decades, one of my best friends, Craig, one of my mentors, and helped me learn how to grow, and Gino how to grow. And they came on today. We're sharing some of the best professionals that are bringing unique outlooks in this industry that you need to know. So remember, this is your call. This is all about you. This is you engaging. Please use the reactions when you hear something cool or something you like or something you think is funny. Throw it out there. Hit the reaction. There we go. Thumbs up, hearts. There you go. It helps with the interaction. It helps with the energy. And there's a chat feature. How about that? A little chat feature. These guys are real guys. They'll answer your questions. They want to see your thoughts, your questions, and all that. So this is an engagement for just an hour. It's going to change your life. Every week does. I mean, I take notes like you can't believe, and I get my team on this because they understand that you have to stay in the know and you have to stay motivated. And nobody better than Craig Davis, who's now has his own coaching company called Ascend
Experience.
Extend Experience. Even better.
With an
I like
X,
experience
because I'm too cool for the E.
Just the X. And he's literally one of our bros, and helped Gino and I grow a region from literally 3 million a month to 300 loans a month and 1.5 billion. And also just a good dude. And he's helped us in so many factors, not just with production, but mindset, being a good mentor, being a good professional, being a good manager, and so much more. You're going to always get great inspiration from him. One of the best mindset coaches I know. And then, of course, I dare anybody to say they don't know Dave Savage. I dare. Come on, anybody? I doubt it. And if you don't know Dave Savage, then you need to, because he is one of the most, I know, I'd laugh too. Everybody's like, right? So Dave Savage, literally one of the most impactful people in our industry for decades and decades, one of the best givers of the industry. And he's given us one of the best tools I've been using for over, it's got to be 20 years, when it was like an Excel spreadsheet, I think, called Mortgage Coach. And now he's aligned with also sells Boomerang and runs Trust Engine. He is the guy who's bringing you interviews, 1 or 2 a week at least, dude. It's
probably 3-ish a week.
Yeah, with the best of the best. I mean, everybody that you need to know of how to do what you need to do in this market. So I'm going to get off my soapbox, but I just want to tee this up because these guys are awesome. We want you guys engaged. We want you to pay attention. We want you to take notes. We want you to react. And I promise you'll get something out of it. And that's our goal every single week. And we want you to be part of the Momentum Builder community. So make sure you download the Momentum Builder app, and I'll do a little bit of housekeeping at the end. But right now, I'm going to tee it up to you boys, and I'm going to take notes. So go with it. Whoop, whoop.
Right on. Well, thanks, Donnie G. And man, hats off to you, brother. And as you have to say, if you stay on the line for a minute, the one thing I remember when I interviewed Simon Sinek was he was talking about the mentor relationship, right? And what I loved what he said was, it's not just mentor-mentee, it's mentor-mentor, right? Coach, leader, right? And Don, you and Gino have been more than that, with me along the way. So I appreciate your introduction. I just want to make sure that I'm passing the love back to what you and Gino doing. And for everybody on this call, what you guys are doing with Momentum Builder and building this community and this tribe. And you guys are doing it out of your generosity and your pocketbook, and but the fact that you guys are so all in on this, on what this is. So I please encourage everybody who's on this call, A, thank you for being on this call, but B, invite your team, invite others, invite people to Momentum Builder, the event. Make sure you're attending these, because look at the caliber, with Dave Savage on and so many other, people that, there's nothing but value through generosity. So I thank you, Don. I thank you, Gino, Sonia, everybody else, involved in this. So hats off to you, brother.
Hey, great hat, by the way. All right, I'm gonna tee up.
Hey, real quick, I get to say something nice about Don and Gino before Don leaves. But I want to say, guys, I love the name Momentum Builder. I just released, was it yesterday? Yeah, yesterday, the halftime report with Kristen Messerly. And while the live event that they do is in spring, with intention, like let's kick off the year with intention and momentum. It's game time now. Like we're at the, what is it, the middle of Q3. Q4 is going to come up before we know it. And so, it is time to start building momentum to close the year strong and momentum to start next year right. So anyways, Don, thank you for everything you and Gino do. I'm grateful to have the opportunity to have you guys as friends and to, drive my mission of, changing how people get into debt. So thank you.
Absolutely, David. It wouldn't happen without the support of the two of you, period. You're a big supporter of our vision to create Momentum Builder, and you are one of the people behind it going, you guys should do it. Our industry needs it, and you help guide us the whole way. So I'm going to let you guide the rest of the crew that's taking time out of their day to be here.
Bro.
You guys are getting some really good numbers there. And if you guys on the call, if you still have time to bring in some of your friends, so you should do that. So I'm going to tap out and take notes.
Right on. Well, speaking of friends and speaking of mentors, Dave, it's almost like, we talk about this stuff all the time. And it's like, this is just a recording of our conversation that we normally have. Right. And that's what's exciting about this. So, all right, Dave Savage, Chief Innovation Officer, Trust Engine, mortgage coach, mentor, generosity giver. I don't know anybody in this industry, let alone any industry, and put up the biggest podcasters who's interviewed more people, given so much for so long. It's not like this is a new endeavor for you. So this is truly exciting, and I thank you. All right, Chief Innovation Officer. What does innovation mean? What does that mean to you?
I think it just always means better in a new way. It's in order for it to be an innovation, it's got to be new. It's got to be better. And I don't know that we need to add a lot more to it. It's always getting better. And I guess it does imply technology, although I don't think it must involve technology. I think you can innovate with processes. I think you can innovate with new standards. I think you can innovate with new habits. I do think in this modern era, for my entire career, like technology, like 2007, the rocket went off. You could fill out an app with a phone. Well, actually 2007, the iPhone went off. I think it was 2014 when the rocket went off. But I would just leave it with, there's all kinds of ways of innovating, and I'd love to focus on that a little bit.
Yeah, and it's interesting for me, especially now that I'm on this side of the fence, and so much of where my passion and my joy and my purpose, in helping others, succeed, and understanding that so much of how I do that is through helping them optimize and getting underneath that. And I was doing a little bit of research on innovation a little while ago. I think I called you on this. And here's what I learned. And you guys might all know this, so you can call me out on this. Did you know that Thomas Edison did not invent the light bulb? I didn't know that. I always I don't know, put in the chat, do you guys know that? I didn't. So, but this was my light bulb moment, right? No pun intended. So he didn't invent the light bulb. He innovated the light bulb. He figured out right? We all know that, through whatever the 6,000 tries of how not to do it, he figured out how to make the filament brighter and last longer. And what dawned on me is that I believe that innovation happens in the perseverance of the idea, the perseverance of your objective, right? Not just I have an idea. That the idea might be the invention, but it's the innovation that happens in the perseverance. And that's something that I've always witnessed with what you've done in your pursuit, with Mortgage Coach and now Trust Engine, Home IQ, and so much more. And the ideas that come from that. I mean, what have you learned, at least in your process of driving something forward?
Oh man, I've learned so much. But my favorite thing about innovation, we're going to do one right now, is that to communicate in a way that's professional and in a way that's valuable just gets easier and easier and easier. Like when I fell in love with technology, it was because of spell check. I could, and I'm ADD. It was like, oh, I could, send a letter that doesn't have any spelling errors, it doesn't have any grammar errors, and then I could remember to do things at scale. And now it's easier to research things. It's easier to create content. I'm going to pull up a little innovation right now, and I don't know if you see it on your screen.
Yeah,
but I've got ChatGPT. What is the definition of innovation? It's easier than ever to just be smart. Like this little thing, it makes it easier to create content. Like it's telling us the definition right now, and in a minute I could say, write a LinkedIn post about innovation. So, I mean, my takeaway is that technology has just always made it easier to communicate in a more effective and a more profound way. And then the other thing I've learned is that human beings don't always do the better, the more effective, and the more efficient thing. It's like one thing knowing it, and then it's like another thing doing it. Like my job as chief innovation officer is to push our company to do new, better things, to help lenders be more profitable, to help lenders be more efficient. But I mean, my number one challenge is always, like, hey guys, we got a new and better way to drive conversion with pre-quals, and then to get human beings to do it. So it's like, it's one thing to do it, and then it's another thing to like create habits and skills with others to do it. So anyways, by the way, I'm not going to read this out loud because I'm not good at reading out loud, but that's pretty badass that ChatGPT could just knock that out like that.
My discovery of ChatGPT, actually, I was at Momentum Builder, actually, funny. And someone I was already talking about, this is February, right? Like I first heard about it in January. Like that's when this thing showed up, right? At least for me. Someone's like, ask ChatGPT to write you a poem and give it just a few pieces of information. And I went, oh shit. Like what it spit back, right? But what I'm learning, obviously, from what your point is how do we use AI, which is obviously here. We can't deny that. Just like when Facebook showed up, look what that did, to be more productive, right? And I'm still figuring this out. How do we weave in productivity with the use of AI? And that's certainly translatable to where this industry is going.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And just how to deliver better service, more value, better, faster, cheaper. I mean, that is, that is what we all must do.
Yeah. All right. So with all the interviews that you've done, especially of late, obviously given the market conditions and sort of the pivot of the market, right? We all understand. And you've been on this passionate pursuit, especially with your halftime reports. And I think with where, you see things going, and that, especially through the conversations that we've had, like what are some common threads that you're learning in these interviews? And we can kind of get to the halftime report from here too, but like, because you interview elite salespeople, marketing people, coaches, company owners, CEOs, leaders. I mean, what are some common threads?
So first of all, because in the content I create, I am like surfing the peaks. I'm looking for people that are winning in this market. And and it's one commonality is that the best are getting better. Like when I interviewed Shant Banosian, who's number one loan officer in America, super humble, cool human being. And I've interviewed him twice this year, and the first time was in May, kind of like third week in May. He's like, I've had more meetings and talked one-on-one with more realtors this year than any year in my career. And I'm getting number one loan officer in America. And by the way, it was May. So in that 5.5 months, he'd already talked and had better conversations and done better masterminds. Like the best are getting better. And by the way, when I looked him up at MMI, I don't have any scientific data to say like his gap. I mean, his production is down from previous years, like everybody's, but the number of peers that he has that are like on his tail are fewer and further behind. Like he's gaining market share. And then I've interviewed, loan officers doing 20 loans a month, like right now. When I interviewed Michelle Castle, the first quarter of the year, she didn't do well. Her husband was going through some health issues, and she, was just not working as full time. And then between that and the market, but she said, you know what? I turned on the right habits and the right activities 2 months ago. And when I interviewed her, I think it was 21 loans, the month before I talked to her and the month I was talking to her, 21 loans. So the best are getting better is a common theme.
Yeah. So, and this is really fascinating for me too, right? Because I'm going to go back to innovation for a second too, right? So it's like when I think about this stuff, especially again, from my side of the fence now as an optimization coach, what is it about the elite players? How, like the old Wayne Gretzky quote, right? Skate to where the puck is going, not where it is. What do you perceive? Like, what is it that gives them the insight to go there first or to innovate towards where the puck is going versus sitting on a hamster wheel, which, we can all get stuck in our own friction,
Yeah. Well, I think, at the peak of it, it always has to do with mindset. Like elite people have, by and large, great attitudes. The gap in the gain is the best. First of all, it's my book of the year. I still have yet to read a book that added more value to me. Shant Banosian recommended it, by the way. That's how I found out about it. So there's
put that in the chat.
Yeah, there's always a a positive mindset, and I think Jonathan Roach, my coach, you got that positive voice, you got that negative voice, and so they got the positive voice, and then there's a framework that I just heard for the first time. I think it was last week when I interviewed Jim Deutsch. Yep, thank you. See the book, everybody. Gap in the Gain. We'll put a link in chat. Get it, like it's gold. And I think
my favorite for the year too, Dave. Sorry to interrupt you. My favorite too.
Yeah, and by the way, another really important book in this market. Maybe I'll make it. I'll make that a closing thought. With my second book, but I interviewed Jim Deitch, and it's called Moneyball Mortgage, and I'm not going to get into and we'll see if we get into some of the concepts in Moneyball Mortgage, but his closing thought to me was like a code that all of the best have. And he was interviewing Jimmy Bean, who wrote who Moneyball is about. And he interviewed him like in 2018. He interviewed him in 2018. And he was like, hey, you wrote this book, you gave this code of Moneyball, but yet still the A's are still playing Moneyball, and why aren't more teams playing Moneyball? And he said, because it requires a commitment to a system. Like they've got to really believe in their process and their system. By the way, they need to have a system and a strategy. So that was just kind of assumed. They need to do it consistently, and it takes discipline. I don't know if he said it in those three orders, but when I was writing the article on that in the halftime report, it was like those are the three things, like all of the best of the best of the best of the best. Great mindset wrapped around a commitment to a system that they implement consistently, and they apply discipline in most areas of what they do. And by the way, a level of system and discipline has to do with just how much volume, how systemically and consistently they do it.
Yeah, well, and that certainly makes me think about my absolute favorite word in any business, let alone the mortgage business, which some of you might know what I'm about to say, which is scalability. How do you scale? and things are always moving. And so, there's a couple of things that you've come back to, which, mindset, habits, our attitude, and then critical, which is being committed to the process. But like you said, we don't always know what our process is, or maybe we kind of have a process. Maybe something's changed, right? There's our gap to the gain. Do we have to innovate? Do we have to optimize? Right. And so that's so much of why we always want to be on our toes. I mean, that's why people like me are getting into the coaching business. And, it's needed because these processes, it's easy to fall down. It's easy to get out of balance. And we have to be on our toes to continue moving.
No doubt. I mean, it's never been more important for us to do that.
So let's talk about Moneyball Mortgage, because that is really funny. Because I mean, when certainly with my tenure at when we were at Finance of America, and we were really trying to push scorecards, financial fitness, and some of these things. And then when I listened to your interview with Jim, and you guys said Moneyball Mortgage, that like that tied it all back together. Like that theme, I said, oh yes, that's exactly where we want to go. And one of my favorite quotes in the world, and I had a recent LinkedIn post to this, which is, never let a good crisis go to waste. So this might be the opportunistic time, right, to be able to implement some of those concepts. So talk a little bit about Moneyball Mortgage, if you will.
Yeah. So Jim has an accounting background. He has grown and sold successfully and profitably multiple mortgage companies. He's got a CMB. I mean, just brilliant guy. Wrote a book called Strategically Transforming the Mortgage Business. Well, it's over there. I'm not going to go get it. I got to get that like close by so I can pull it up. By the way, I'm going to go get it in a minute when you're not talking, because it's really a good book. But he has helped hundreds of companies. I mean, he's spoken to hundreds of companies, and again, accountant guy. And his thesis was that lenders need to start exercising extreme transparency and scorecarding loan officers beyond how many loans did you close and what was your volume. Let's face it, every loan officer's on this. You work for a company, whether you're at the top of the list, bottom of the list, you're checking out that scorecard, and it's got two scores. And he's saying, hey, we need to start playing money. Well, I said Moneyball Mortgage, but he had interviewed Jimmy Bean, so he's been thinking about Moneyball Mortgage. But he said we need to start, looking at them in 3 quartiles. And so in the interview, you guys will see it. And this is an executive message, but this is also a loan officer message. And tier 1 were making the company, they were profitable about a little over $2,000 a loan. Tier 2 loan officers were about break even. In this particular anonymized case study, they were actually losing $200 a loan, which in this market, it's okay. But quartile 3 were losing the company $5,000 a loan. And so message number 1, first of all, if you're a leader or an executive, it's time to start playing Moneyball Mortgage. And if you're a loan officer, it's time to know where you stand. Because if you are not, profitable on a loan by loan basis for your company, you're a liability to yourself and you're a liability to the business. But here's where the most important things comes from a loan officer perspective. Is I asked Jim, what's why? What's the number one differentiator between the best and the not the best? And he said it was concessions. And then him and I started playing off of this, and I said, what about conversion? And he's like, absolutely. And then now I've had about a week since I've had this interview, and I have come to a personal conclusion that conversion is the North Star. Because conversion is the North Star, because one, from a loan officer's perspective, you don't necessarily take the hit on conversion. So as a loan officer, it hurts your company, but it doesn't hurt you directly. By the way, it does hurt you directly. It is your sales fitness score, but conversion hits you directly. And I started thinking about, hey, what is the perfect conversion playbook? And I started realizing that if you ran that best practices of conversion in this market, you're also going to reduce your concessions. And so you're going to win, everybody's going to win. So the thesis is, guys, start playing Moneyball Mortgage. How many loans you closed, production is, it's one of 5 metrics you should manage, but the number one metric, and I put it in the halftime report, it is your in-funnel conversion. Your number 2 metric is your above the funnel conversion, like your database to loan, then concessions, and then how many loans did you close and what your volume is. 5 metrics. And I just promise everybody on this call, if you start playing Moneyball Mortgage, 1, you will like literally be winning in this market. For all you executives, you won't lose money. And 2, as the market gets better, you're going to be even more profitable and you're going to grow even faster. So it's like one of those things, if you implement today, you're going to win today and you're going to 10x yourself tomorrow.
Yeah. And what this goes back to, being able to fall back on your systems. Right. And it's actually funny. I'm rereading right now, Atomic Habits. I think I read it maybe like 7 years ago, and that's just one of those great books we should read again. And there's a quote in there from James Clear that I absolutely love, which is, we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems.
Right.
So when we talk about conversion from the top of the funnel, and right, because credit reports are expensive, right? All that stuff. So, and then we have time and energy and all this other stuff that can create waste and create drag, friction, frustration, let alone when we get to the point of application. And I'll give you a plug, obviously, with Mortgage Coach, and why I've always been such a believer, because what I view Mortgage Coach, for example, is a foundation to stand on to help become the identity you believe you are, and then you are. Right. And you give advice, advice, not price. But what's really rooted in that and the culture you provide to your borrower. Now, evidence, I have seen the stats, because when I was certainly leading, the division at FAM, when we would track this, we could see loan officers who use Mortgage Coach have less concessions. And when you have less concessions, obviously you affect the branch, better, but you also have generally higher conversion, closing on time. So if I have less concessions, I'm closing on time, higher conversion rates, I tend to be happier as a loan officer.
Right.
And if I'm happier as a loan officer from a branch or a company perspective, I'm probably going to be more loyal too.
Right.
And so that's how I look at like the data and the Moneyball Mortgage concept, where we could sometimes get lost in the numbers, or we can get hung up in that, but it's not the numbers. It's what are the numbers meaning?
Right.
What's behind the numbers? And I think that's, from a leadership, company leadership, branch management perspective, and then you also have from the originator perspective. And these are coming from 2 different sides. But I think where Moneyball comes in is we got to meet it in the middle and really see how that benefits. So that's why I love, and I think Moneyball certainly ties into so much of what Mortgage Coach is a conduit of for loan officers and the borrower experience, right?
Yeah. No, we tried hard to do that, and do recommend every professional on this to scan this article. I think there's already a link in here, but you can also get links to it at savageinsights.com. That's my website. The first half of this report is data. It's just calling out trends in the market. It's got some quotes for some leaders, from some leaders. And then as you get down here, we get into opportunities and strategies in this market. By the way, one thing I will say, the thinking Kristen and I put into this was the book after The Gap and the Gain is called 10X is Easier Than 2X. And one of the things I tried to do when we came up with the strategies was like, what are, there's a lot of things we can do to hit base hits, but what are things that if we did these things, they would deliver 10X results? So like, Moneyball Mortgage is number one, because I really do believe not only is it important for executives, I actually think I'll know in a few months, but I believe that interview with Jim and the start of Moneyball Mortgage may be the most important interview I've ever done. And I've done well over 1,000 interviews of some of the best loan officers in the country. Some of them Simon Sinek, Jocko Willink, Darren Hardy, people outside the industry, people in the industry. But I do believe that if this Moneyball Mortgage takes off with both loan officers and lenders, like, it will save some companies, it will save some loan officers. And at the end of the day, when you focus and obsess on conversion, you know what else is happening? You're delivering a really incredible consumer experience. Like, the consumer wins. And also, to optimize conversion, you really need to give advice. You need to, like, hey, customer, look at your options. Look at some strategies to pay off your home faster. Like, when you optimize conversion, the customer wins, the realtor wins, and the loan officer wins. So I'm really going to try to kick off a series of Moneyball interviews, but I know already, the North Star is conversion, but that is not how loan officers and executives, it's not the number one metric that everyone manages.
Yeah. Well, and, frankly, it was difficult, right? And companies can struggle with data integrity. Systems aren't necessarily always built around to measure this. So it creates a lot of manual effort. And that's where I think some companies struggle, but not every. And it's a mindset shift to adapt, right? And going back to, like, what we talked about, mindset, creating habits, and developing our processes that we can fall on. And I would, I'll throw out to anybody here, if you are not using Mortgage Coach, for example, or if you are struggling with any sort of process or system for yourself, reach out to me, complimentary, coaching huddle. Hey, no problem. And I'll show you sort of what I call my roadmap to results optimization schedule to help you. Because it's not so much, right? Like Simon, like Dave, you and I were talking about yesterday, right? And Simon Sinek's, golden circles, right? Why? Brilliant. Where I tend to focus, like, we have to have the why. And obviously, what are we doing? Why are we doing? How? And that's where I get into processes and mindset and action. And we got to simplify. It's very easy to get too complex. We got to simplify. And there's ways that we can do that. And so I would encourage anybody looking at your systems, your processes, your habits, reach out to me, and I'll happy to show you, how this tool works. And it's free. It's off and running for all of you guys. So here's another perspective, because I love the mindset lens. In your interview with Brian Hale, which everybody watch the interview with Jim, because that was my big, like, holy crap, that was awesome. Moneyball. Something Brian Hale said, which also jumped off the screen for me, was, and especially from a loan officer perspective, is be the CEO of your business.
Yeah. Amen to that.
So what does that mean to you?
Wow. Yeah, that was a great call out. And by the way, guys, I want to make sure you notice the link to get a huddle with Craig. Just can't emphasize enough. Like, this guy, when he knows the business inside and out, knows it from an originator perspective, knows it from a leader perspective. Having a huddle is worth, like, a lot of money. Like, it's probably he could probably charge $1,000 and get some huddles. So make sure you take them up on that, and the links off to in the chat. But being a CEO of your business just means being a pro. Like being a pro, planning. Having a documented plan. It means understanding that you need to be a servant leader. Whether you have a team or not, you have a team. Mm-hmm. Your processor is a team. Your branch manager is part of your team. Your realtors are part of your team. You are an extension of their sales process. And by the way, a CEO needs to lead up and lead down. Like, trust me, I've been a CEO for 30 plus years. And it wasn't like, like I had to lead in different directions in the organization. I had partners who were, owners. When I was the CEO of Trust Engine, we have a new CEO. I had a board of directors. So you got to manage up, you got to manage down. And so it just means, be a great leader and look at your business beyond being a loan officer, and by the way, the other thing I would say is I'm really trying to eradicate the term loan officers, because I do believe being a loan officer where I can close a loan on time, can do great transactions, I know how to quote rates, I know how to win business. That is not going to cut it going forward. You need to be a data-driven mortgage advisor. Now, I'm going to call it a data-driven mortgage coach, because I think using our software and following our processes are the absolute best. But if you're not a data-driven mortgage advisor going forward, you're just going to lose market share. Not to say you're dead, but you really have to drive towards that. And by the way, here's the deal. If you're in loan officer mentality and you're not like CEO mentality, you're never going to get there, because the CEO is planning, running projects. CEO is just doing so much more than that.
Yeah. Well, and I love that. I mean, I think there's a couple of things here, right? The CEO piece. I mean, I think for everyone here, very simply, just put that as the lens you look through. And if you're looking at your business, your systems, your company, your branch, all these different things, if you look through the lens of the CEO, to your point, Dave, okay, well, how would you plan? And going back to like, what is it about the elite that recognizes where the puck is going and they're getting there before other people? And they're looking at it through the lens of a leader. Because a leader is always trying to get out in front, right? And pull the team with them. So think about what, everybody on this call, think about, what does a CEO lens feel like? What does that mean? Would you make a decision differently? Would you look at your portfolio of business and opportunities differently? And notice how I said portfolio. Think of like a stock portfolio. Are you diversified with your referral partners, with your business opportunities? I mean, there's a lot, I could certainly go down this road for a while. But I also want to jump towards, and I love I think we've gotten the name wrong around loan officer for a long time. I mean, loan officer to me sounds very transactional. Data-driven mortgage advisor, mortgage coach, that sounds relational. We're planners. We're invested into the success of our clients and our referral partners and others. And I like that pursuit. I think there's definitely a lot. And that, there's something else I want to call out too. Bill Dallas was talking about the founder's trap. And I think that's very relative, even in just this vein of conversation. Am I a loan officer or am I a mortgage coach? Do I provide wealth? Here's another perspective. Are you taking or are you giving? Right? It's just a lens do you look through, right? But are you taking an application like a loan officer, or are you giving an opportunity, a wealth opportunity? That's a mortgage coach. Right. And so that's just a shift in a very simple perspective shift that can have dramatic and impactful results.
Yeah. Let me put a little explanation on that. And also just tactically for people to know one thing, like if you're doing this one thing, you're an advisor. And if you're not doing this one thing, you're a loan officer. And, an advisor is always focused on something that matters to the family beyond the transaction. And let's face it, consumers that you're talking to, borrowers you're talking to, they don't get loans because they want loans. They get loans because they want the home. Mm-hmm. And the true American dream is a home with financial freedom. Mm-hmm. And an advisor is always, when they're quoting rates, when they're delivering a pre-approval, they're doing it within the context of, hey, what does this mean to you in the future based off your goals? So like, a mortgage coach rep versus own analysis will, allow a first-time home buyer to go, oh, I could be renting versus buying this house. What does that look like in 3 years? What does that look like in 10 years? An advisor is showing the 3 and 10 years. A loan officer is not. And here's another deal, guys. The seismic shift in our industry is that 63 started the year of 2023 with 63% of homeowners with mortgages have a 2 or 3% interest rate. Do you think, being a loan officer is going to help the household hostages who they do want to move up, but they feel trapped by this low rate, or the accidental landlords, the people that want to move up and they could rent out their house and move up? Do you think if you're not showing them the 3-year, 5-year, 15-year, whatever the period of time in the future that matters to them, if you're not showing that to them, here's the deal. You're not optimizing purchase power for realtors. You're not helping realtors get listings and sell homes, and that is the delineator. Like when you think of the conversations, whether it's a first-time home buyer, a move-up buyer, are you showing them the impact of that decision over 3 years, 5 years, whatever the period that matters most to them? That is, and by the way, there is more to it than that, but I would say that's the North Star. And by the way, thanks for all those little emojis. It's fun getting those.
I know.
Reactions.
Totally. So here's what I love, right? And again, I'm going to go back to the puck, right? How do I innovate? How do I know? Okay, all right. I'm not going to be a loan officer anymore. I'm a mortgage advisor. I'm a mortgage coach. That's my identity. I now refer to myself as that. Let it be said, shall it be known. Now what? Right? How do I predict if I'm a data-driven mortgage coach? How do I create predictive behavior? What tools can help me do that? How do I recognize opportunities? I used to call them Easter eggs, right? The markets present different Easter eggs. Like right now, and we all know this, right? Inventory's low, equity's high, consumer debt's really high, rates are low, but there's an effective rate, a household effective rate, right? Where there is opportunity in there. So Dave, like what predictive tools are available? What are some processes and systems that you could recommend for everybody here to make that go from this gap to this gain?
Got it. So let me show a slide. It's fairly dated, but the content is spot on in this slide. So, this is what I call the data-driven mortgage advisor compass, and due north is being a mortgage coach. And I'll go to that real quick. And to me, be a mortgage coach, give advice, like this is the framework, and by the way, this is just the framework on how you make a smart mortgage decision. Have options. Like you must look at options or you're not optimizing your decision. You must look at those options over time or you're not optimizing and you're not being an advisor. And you must look at strategies to help that consumer achieve financial freedom, whether that's paying down their mortgage faster, investing money somewhere else. Like these are just the three essentials. So that's due north. And I know of no better tool than Mortgage Coach in terms of doing that. I love what Barry does at MBS Highway. I think, being a member of Barry's where, I think of that as content and following that. So I think, being that advisor, those are two great, tools and content, turning your database into a data bank. When I talk about, the other part of conversion, first of all, a CRM is really important. And I'm not going to get into, which CRM is better. The CRM that you use is the best CRM. And so using your CRM, having it monitored for signals of who's most likely to move up, who's most likely to do a debt consol, who's most likely to be a first-time home buyer in this house. I think HomeBot does a great job. Like I would highly recommend that tool, and it fits right here. We have a product called Sales Boomerang, which is the best, what I'd call alerting platform. I will say, there's a lot. It's almost become commoditized. Like most databases look like this. Credit inquiries, listing alerts. These are good, but it's better. Oh, this is a move-up buyer. Oh, this is a cash out buyer. Oh, this is an owner. And by the way, what's even better is that when that signal comes with a piece of content, And by the way, that's what we're building. But let me go back to the where was it's another slide. Oh no, it's down here. So those are a couple tools there: Sales Boomerang, HomeBot. Know your numbers, guys. I'm a big fan of Win by Noon, the Win by Noon planner. But I don't care whether you need to, like, every lead is on a blank piece of paper, and you're tracking your conversion, and you're winning by noon. But knowing your numbers is part of being a data-driven mortgage advisor, and then know the data and educate with data. So I think Barry does a great job of this within MBS Highway. We have an app called Rate Watch. I think my favorite is Keeping Current Matters. They have a free blog, Keeping Current Matters blog. I also recommend loan officers subscribe. They've got local data now. But Housing Wire, I'm a big fan of Housing Wire. Come to our interview. I interview the top loan officers. I recently interviewed Dave Childers, the president of Keeping Current Matters. But know your numbers, so like, be a coach, deliver a great experience, turn your database into a data bank, know your numbers, win by noon, and know the data, nationally, and know the data locally, and be the one who educates in your local market with data. So there's a playbook for you, bro.
Yeah, I love it, man. That's great. And I love the educate piece. That, like, it feels good to educate people. I like to educate people, right? And our bar, and one thing I remember I pulled out of the halftime report, and everyone make sure that you do read the halftime report. That obviously the wave, I'm not gonna say obviously, but the demographic says the wave is coming. And if we believe in that, which I do, right? We all believe that there is a wave coming, might be more like 25 and on, but I don't know dates. I'm not sending out dates, but this is what jumped out at me. The biggest obstacles, especially with the millennials and the Gen Zers starting to come, lack of knowledge. There you go.
Yep, there's the wave, everybody.
There's the wave, but in that wave, there was 3 obstacles: lack of knowledge, lack of support, and lack of trust. That's what that wave, that's their concern. That's a barrier for them. Lack of knowledge. Okay, I don't really understand the mortgage process. I don't know. Lack of support. Well, we're fighting tech, robots versus humans. I don't feel like I'm getting support. Like, I still believe people still want to work with humans as much as AI is working on replacing. People still want to work with humans. People connect with people. Lack of trust. That was interesting to me. I remember that back in 2008. What do you do for a living? I'm in the mortgage business. Now we stand on a mountain, but I was surprised to hear lack of trust.
Yeah, well, no, by the way, there's a trust crisis in America. For the first time, it's called the Edelman Trust Barometer. Last year was the first time in, it's 50, I don't know if it's 50 or 30 years, but, multiple decades that this Edelman Trust Barometer has been there. It tracks trust in, the world, multiple countries, multiple industries. And last year was the first year in the history of the Edelman Trust Barometer that distrust was the default. Like, more people, and again, this is not just the mortgage industry. This is what time it is in the world. I would add a word when it comes to inspiring first-time home buyers, and I use the word inspiring. I actually, today's a big day for First Home IQ, a nonprofit that I founded with Kristen Messerly and Todd Bookspan. But today we announced our ambassador program, and I'm going to tell you guys to get on the list. We're going to pick our first 20 beta ambassadors by next Friday, and my hope is that 100 loan officers or more say, I want to be a First Home IQ ambassador. By the way, there's at the very top of savageinsights.com, there's a link to sign up and join that. But when we started this nonprofit, it was, like, hey, the Gen Z and really first-time home buyers, all, millennials, were born into a financial literacy crisis. They were born into an affordability crisis, and they were born into just financial obstacles. I mean, maybe we all were, because it's not like when I was born into, everyone's money smart. And I certainly was not, money smart until later in life, but it doesn't have to be like that. So I would just say, if you want to crush it with first-time home buyers before education, you need to inspire them, like emotionally. I don't know who taught me this process, but a long time ago, when I go into a conversation like this one with you, I always think, like, what do I want people to think? What do I want people to feel? And what do I want people to do? And I do think we should actually put feel first. What do I want people to feel? We need to connect with them emotionally. We need to inspire them. And then we need to educate them. And then we need to help resource them into home ownership. And, check out firsthomeIQ.com. And I do believe the next 5 to 10 years in mortgage, this is a quote from Brian Hale as well. He said the next 5 to 10 years in the mortgage business are going to be stupendously great. And this is coming from a guy who's not Mr. Glass half full guy. He's pretty, realistic to conservative. And he goes, well, we got to get to the bottom. And so the future is going to be great for the professionals that become advisors, that are data driven, and hopefully become First Home IQ ambassadors.
I love it. Well, that's incredible leadership. I'm so proud that you put that together, and we do have a crisis of education, and by no means am I going to go down the school system, route. But the fact that you guys are making an effort to get this down at the younger, generation and whatnot, it's so critical. I certainly never had this, in school, but I appreciate what you guys are doing there.
Yeah, no, I'm fired up. I'm really just trying to create what I wish I would have had, what I hope my kids would have, and what I hope my kids will have. And by the way, guys, First Home IQ, I found it. I mean, it's a nonprofit. This is not a for-profit business, and it is the mortgage industry's nonprofit. I believe that the mortgage industry can put a major dent into financial literacy in America if, a lot of loan officers in every local city said, you know what, I'm gonna, and by the way, partner with realtors. By the way, Tom Ferry is behind First Home IQ. So we're going to have Tom's help promoting it and supporting it. But if we partnered with realtors and we went into schools, high schools, colleges, boys and girls clubs, young organizations, we could put a dent in financial literacy. We could put people into home ownership, and our industry can really make it. It can do what governments aren't doing and can't do. The mortgage industry could do. So hopefully you guys check it out.
Awesome.
Way to go, guys. Cool. I had to jump on here because we have to do some house cleaning and some thank yous for some great stuff. Craig, obviously, I love how you prepared for this, as you prepare for everything. Well done. And Dave, you always have great insights because you live and breathe this stuff daily, which is a key. There's a lot of those are looking to just make, become an influencer, but I call you two impactors. You guys know how to impact people, and you guys are in the trenches. And that's what Gina and I love with our team, and Craig knows, is it's different when you're living and breathing it and in the trenches and talking to those that are trying to figure this out, and the challenges and the success stories, which is really good. Because I love, Dave, you're talking about people that are actually excited about the future, as we are. I mean, you can ask any of our team on here, anyone can chime in if they don't believe us, but we walk in our office pumped up. We know what the other side of this looks like. We've been in this, multiple times, as you have, Dave, as you have, Craig, and we know what the other side looks like. And the good news, the one good news is bad news. Sorry, a lot of our industry has lost their jobs and no longer in the industry, but that's because they didn't lean in and they didn't really become advisors. They were order takers. And now we're going to have less than half of our competition gone by the end of the year, and probably more are leaving. And that's the only good thing for those of us who are advisors and do a great job for our clients, is less noise. Basically, that's what I call them. They're just noise out there. Where, Dave, you have a passion to make sure we're all advisors. Craig, you have a passion to make sure that we're better coached to add more value. and help with our mindsets to be able to do that. So you guys absolutely killed it. I love you bringing up gap and gain. The one thing I really liked about that was difference between most is when we learn how to track things, and be accountable. I love that gap and gain tells you to basically, because we all got to do this right now. A lot of us, Dave knows it, Craig, we have to go back to basics. Hard, which is making the calls and having meetings, going to open houses. I don't know how many of my top producers are like, yeah, I went to 3 open houses this weekend. I guarantee you, I'm like, I know you guys didn't think you'd ever have to do that again, but they are. But what's nice is the gap and gain tells you to actually not just look at, okay, here is my goal. Well, sometimes it's hard to hit those goals, but it's good to have them. But what gap and gain also told us to do is look back and see what your progress has been. And I love that because you're like, wait a minute, 2 months ago, I didn't make any calls to agents. 2 months ago, I didn't make 10 calls a week to my database. 2 months ago, I didn't set up weekly appointments with my real estate agents. 2 months ago, I didn't have a mastermind group. So you got to look at what your gains are, and it helps you continue to advance and improve. And that's something I never thought of when you read gap and gain. I'm like, that's a great way to look at it, because a lot of times you're like, I'm 50% off my goals, I'm 80%. But as long as you're making progress, it makes a big difference. And that's helping a lot of our team out. Is Gina and I tell them it's the activities. And Craig, I know you taught us this too. It's those activities that help us go to sleep at night. Because yes, are we making what we want to make? Are we doing the volume we want to do? Are we growing our region as fast as we want? No, of course not, because it's tough right now. But at least we go to bed at night knowing we did everything we possibly could to get to that other side and help our team get to the other side. I mean, we're leading the charge with the flag. We are not sitting back and telling them, you guys need to do this. And that's what these calls are about, is we're leading the charge with the flag. All right. So Dave and Craig, great job. Again, you guys know the value of Momentum Builder. You guys will be part of it. This year is going to be better than ever because it's going to be very intimate. Only 500 tickets will be sold. We're keeping it that way for a reason. And it's only it's going to be for those who want to lean in. This is not about the posers that want to go party. Yes, there'll be incredible networking events with your community. We'll be there. Believe me, Dave, Craig, and I know how to party. Gino's the capital party. So we're going to have great networking events because it's all about meeting your community members. You don't know who you're going to meet at these networking events. And we have multiple marketing events, especially at the end. We end the event with the biggest party you'll ever see in the industry, bar none, on the record at the Park MGM. So you need to go there. I met Dave at these events. I've met Barry Habib at these events, Todd Duncan. This is going to be impactful and it's going to change your life, because every person you see here is giving value, meaning they're only going to give you what you need to know in this market to succeed. And then we hang out together. So make sure you get your ticket, because they're going to go up and you guys get a discount for being part of our community. I think Sonia's going to pop that up. Go to Momentum, but get your ticket now. This will sell out. So, and get your discount now and use DG 2024. Next week, there she goes. She's typing it in. How about that? DG 2024. These guys will be at the event. The network is going to be amazing. Next week, we have another great session. Every week, we bring in the guns. And make sure you're going to pop that up, Sonia. There we go.
Oh, nice.
Josh Fitz. He's one of the originators. So you guys know Josh. Who has more energy than Josh, guys? Can you think of anybody?
No. Well, Jake Felding might.
Jeremy
those two are both
few.
Just incredible energizer bunnies.
Right. So these two are going to bring it. And next week's going to be another great show. And make sure you get on our app so you can stay connected. We have so many great things coming up. And Momentum Builder app, over 800 already on it. Stay connected. And again, thank you, Dave, Craig. Love you guys. You guys are my bros. I appreciate you.
Love you, my brother. Appreciate you. Craig, thank you for that.
Awesome. Thank you. Awesome time. Appreciate you guys.
Care, everybody.
Look at all the love you're getting. Holy cow. You guys getting
Gotta
love.
love the reactions. Appreciate it, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Love you.